Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Got a fascinating story out of California sent to me by a lot of people involving drones. And here's the thing. This exact situation happened in Michigan, made it to the Michigan Supreme Court, where it ended badly, I believe. And looks like a similar situation could be happening in California. So from the Los Angeles Times, Hannah Fry wrote this. Government drones used in a runaway spying operation to peek into backyards in Sonoma County, according to a lawsuit. 3 residents filed a lawsuit against Sonoma County seeking to block code enforcement from using drones to take aerial images of their homes in what the ACLU is calling a runaway spying operation. So they're not getting warrants, but they're saying, well, we're not law enforcement, we're code enforcement. The lawsuit was filed by the ACLU recently on behalf of 3 residents, and it alleges that the county began using drones with high-powered cameras and zoom lenses in 2019 to track all kinds of things, including illegal cannabis cultivation. But in the years since, they've kind of broadened that a little bit more. Since then, they've been used 700 times to find other code violations on private property without first seeking a warrant. So the senior staff attorney of the ACLU says, for too long, Sonoma County code enforcement has used high-powered drones to warrantlessly sift through people's private affairs and initiate charges that upend lives and livelihoods. All the while, the county has hidden these unlawful searches from the people they've spied on, the community, and the media. So a spokesperson for Sonoma County said the county is reviewing the complaint and takes the allegations seriously. The lawsuit comes amid a national debate over the use of drones by government agencies who have increasingly relied on them during disasters and for environmental monitoring and responding to emergency calls. More recently, some agencies in California and other states have explored using drones to investigate code enforcement violations. And that's what happened here in Michigan. In Michigan, a code enforcement officer used a drone to do a flyover of private property that could not be seen from any public place. And based on what he saw using that drone, brought charges and made it all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court. I attended the oral arguments in that case. I was actually there and I saw the debate taking place. And at one point in time, one of the Supreme Court justices of the Michigan Supreme Court actually said, do you guys really think that this will get out of control to be rampant, just drones flying everywhere, doing code enforcement? Kind of like, really? Yes. Yeah. Yes. In 2024, nearly half of Sonoma County's drone flights involved non-cannabis violations, including construction without a permit, junkyard conditions, and other zoning violations. The use of drones over someone's private space raises a question of what is considered private, says a professor of law at UC Irvine. He said that if law enforcement on the ground wants to see on the other side of a tall fence or trees into someone's property, they have to get the person's consent, or they need probable cause and a warrant. Why shouldn't that apply above ground too, he said. Now, California does not have a law that regulates the use of drones by code enforcement agents. In 2015, lawmakers in the state assembly approved a measure that would have restricted the use of drones over private property without the owner's permission, but the governor vetoed the bill, saying at the time that it would expose hobbyists or commercial users to burdensome litigation. The ACLU argues the county's use of drones as an investigative tool violates the California Constitution, which provides people the right to privacy and against unreasonable searches and seizures. I think that our expectations of privacy are based on social norms, and people don't normally expect that someone's going to have a high-powered, detailed ability to capture extraordinary detail with a camera that's just buzzing over their property. That's the attorney from UC Irvine speaking. We shouldn't have to walk around life expecting just because this technology exists that we have no privacy from anything anymore, from any direction. The lawsuit also alleges that the county's drone policy has loosened in the past several years. In 2019, the policy required inspectors to receive a complaint about a property before deploying a drone. Now, officials have no such requirement, allowing them to launch discretionary, proactive investigations, the complaint states. Residents named in the lawsuit say the drones hovering above their homes have resulted in ongoing privacy concerns and a loss of enjoyment of their property. One plaintiff decided to sell his home after he learned that the county had been taking pictures of his backyard with a drone since 2021. Another plaintiff who is deaf wasn't able to hear the buzz of the drone. When a worker on her property pointed it out, she became confused and worried. She rushed to her bedroom and closed the curtains, concerned about how long the drone had been there and whether it had seen her on her property earlier that day when she was not wearing clothing. She alleges the drone made 2 big loops around her property, and shortly after, a red tag appeared on her gate alleging violations of the county code, one for illegal grading and another for having on her property an unpermitted dwelling, which is a small cabin her father had built on the land back in 1981. She spent $25,000 to fix the grading issue, but still faces fines for that cabin built back in 1981. ACLU attorneys allege the evidence obtained by the drone was done so unlawfully because officials did not have a search warrant. This horrible experience has shattered my sense of privacy, one of them said. I'm afraid to open my blinds or go outside to use my hot tub because who knows when the county's drone could be spying on me. A third plaintiff confronted county officials after she learned they had taken detailed aerial photographs of her outdoor bathtub and shower that she and her daughter use daily. She expressed concern to inspectors, and code enforcement inspector told her, when we see something like that, we turn around. Oh, okay, so the drone comes over and sees it and turns around. Well, when asked if they see people during the flights, the county officials said yes, but we don't put that in the camera footage. I'm not sure if she understands how drones work, because I suspect that the camera footage is being taken all the time. Whether they save it or what they do with it's another thing altogether. But I can't imagine they're flying a drone and they only start recording when they see something worth recording. But I could be wrong about that. But I can tell you this. There's 2 problems here, one of which is painfully obvious and one of which takes a tiny little bit of thought, and as soon as I say it, you're going to go, oh, of course. Okay? So as in the Michigan case, the idea that they can just fly a drone around any place they want and just come over and hover over your backyard or your front yard or whatever, they can just do that anytime they want, just to check for code enforcement. Most people, I think, would say that's wrong. Now, if there's something that can be seen from the road that's obviously a problem, or if people are complaining, or there's obvious evidence of something, to get a warrant and then confirm it with a drone makes complete sense to me. But the warrant is the key part, because the warrant means a judge will look at it and go, is there or is there not probable cause? If code enforcement officers are allowed to fly drones with no safeguards, no guardrails, whatever you want to call it, okay? Let's suppose you're a police officer and you're in a town trying to do your job. And you're convinced that there's criminal activity going on behind a house on the other side of a very, very tall privacy fence that you cannot see through. And you can't get a warrant because you're working on a hunch. What do? You go down the hallway to code enforcement. You go, hey guys, have you ever thought about checking the code on that house? I think there might be something going on back there you guys need to check out. The police would need a warrant. Code enforcement? No, we don't need no stinking warrants. So the code enforcement guy goes over there, buzzes it with a drone, and comes back and goes, yes or no on the code violations, but you wouldn't believe what else they're doing back there. And remember that evidence, once it's exposed and is in quote unquote plain view, for instance, it's usable. And so is it that big of a stretch to say, oh, the code enforcement officer saw illegal activity while he was lawfully flying a drone? See, if the police are flying the drone, unlawful. Code enforcement officer, lawful. So the lawful drone flight spotted illegal activity. Boom. That's the next domino, my friends. So I was very disturbed when the Michigan Supreme Court ruled the way it did. And it said, well, right now, code enforcement is different than law enforcement. And it's a meaningless distinction to the average person. Because here, a woman says she's facing a $10,000 bill for fines that were generated after a drone flew over her property and apparently discovered something that had been there since 1981. Now, I I hope you know how math works. 1981 was a little while ago. It's been there that long. And does it help her that that's not a law enforcement action, but a code enforcement action? Because there's some law enforcement actions that wouldn't take you $10,000 to fix. Code enforcement, $10,000. So I think it's a meaningless distinction. I think, unfortunately, we're going to need more legislation on this. And when the governor vetoed it and said, "Yeah, we don't want hobbyists being sued," but beyond that, the real issue is code enforcement officers. So you could simply extend the protection that's in place regarding law enforcement officers and simply say, for the purposes of this statute, code enforcement must follow the same rules as law enforcement. That is, 3 words, get a warrant. Get a warrant. So there you go. It's happening in Sonoma County right now. It's happening elsewhere. It's been going on in Michigan. And I'll admit that where it happened in Michigan was kind of in a less populated area, far from Detroit. So I'm not sure how many places are using the drones. But I assure you, when the case got decided in favor of the drone use by code enforcement, that word got out through the municipalities, and I suspect many municipalities bought drones. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about this. It's going to take some legislation to rein it in. So government drones used in a runaway spying operation to peek into backyards in Sonoma County, according to a lawsuit. Hannah Fry wrote that for the LA Times. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law.
Most stuff people worry about isn't ever going to happen anyway.